What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies Podcast. As always, we broadcast live from the Xfinity Lounge. We're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365 and TrueMark Financial Credit Union as the postseason rolls on, just not for the Phillies, but we're here with you as we now officially get into the off-season portion of the conversation, the long 6-8 months, whatever it's 6 months it's going to be between now and first pitch in March of 2026. The conversations about who stays, who goes, what does the coaching situation look like, what does the starting rotation look like. We'll have all of those conversations coming up in the next 6 months or so because we have plenty of time to do it now that the postseason is officially done and the offseason is here. Hello, everybody. Tyler Zulli, Andrew Frazier here with you as well. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on this Monday afternoon, this dreary Monday afternoon here across the Philadelphia area. And I think the weather is almost emblematic of how we're feeling. Last Friday, Andrew and I did a show. It was more, we were still very emotional. We still had a lot of anger. I said my anger had turned to almost disdain and despair, if you will. But I spent the weekend kind of away from sports. Now, granted, my alma mater really didn't let me do that by firing their head coach. But I spent the weekend almost away from sports as best as I could, or I felt like I was going to. And then all of a sudden, Friday night rolls around. My wife was working late. I'd put the baby to bed, so it was just me hanging out in the house. And I said, I'm not watching sports tonight. I'll play video games. I'll watch a movie. I'll watch YouTube video, get down that YouTube rabbit hole that you always find yourself on. And I said, I'm not watching sports tonight. I need a day and maybe a weekend to just disconnect and refocus my mind. And then I was like, well, I'm going to make dinner. So I'm going to sit and have dinner, and I'll watch a couple of innings of Game 5 of the ALDS between the Mariners and the Tigers. And I'll just watch until I'm done dinner because I don't want to commit to a movie. And then, you know that thing while you're eating and all of a sudden you're just not paying attention to the movie, or you eat in the first 30 seconds of the movie just to make sure you catch everything that's going on. I'm not going to watch a movie. I'm not going to play video games. I'll watch a couple of innings. And here I am, an absolute bozo, the death grip that baseball has on my life, absolute clown show that is my life. I find myself watching 8 innings of this 15-inning affair. I finally had to go to bed, but I watched way more than I probably wanted to and probably should have because of the grip that baseball has on my life. And then I turn around, and Saturday night I decide, all right, no more baseball. I'm going to watch the Flyers. And the Flyers play a tough game against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. They force overtime late in the third. Bobby Brink pots the game winner. No. Goalie interference. Could this week get any worse? Naturally, Florida goes down the ice a couple moments later and scores the game winner. And in the last 2 weeks, we have had 2 Eagles losses, one in which they blew a 17-3 lead, the other in which they got downright embarrassed by a 1-win Giants team. The Phillies get eliminated from the NLDS. The Flyers start the season 0-2. My college football team, Penn State, loses to UCLA and Northwestern so badly that they have to fire their head coach and stomach over $50 million just to buy the guy's contract out. Can I get a win? Can I please have a win? Sorry, Hurricanes. Provolone Joe, my bad. Hurricanes. Panthers, Thursday night. They lose that game in the trifecta of annoying losses, right? It was the Hurricanes, you're correct. The point being, can I buy a win, please? It's like Wheel of Fortune, can I buy a vowel? When it's a TH blank and it's an E, but you just need something good going in your right direction. Can I get a win somewhere? God, if the Union lose in the first round of the playoffs this year, I might be done sports for a while. Thankfully, the Sixers season starts next week. Anyway, so I found myself watching that game on Friday night. And then I watched all of last night's ALCS, which was a really good baseball game. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Here's what's coming up on the PHLY Phillies podcast. We're going to start with a new game. A new game that we're going to play Monday morning GM in the like of Monday morning quarterback. So we're going to play Monday morning GM, and each Monday we are going to start the show with an impending Phillies free agent. We'll start today with Ranger Suárez, as you can see. We'll start with that with Ranger Suárez, but we're going to talk about each Monday. We're going to start the show with an impending free agent. We'll discuss what their market might look like. Will they be back as a member of the Phillies in 2025? And we'll play Monday Morning GM each and every Monday to start things off. We're going to talk about Game 1 of the ALCS between the Mariners and the Blue Jays. Well, I guess we have to preview the NLCS between the Dodgers and the Brewers. And we'll do all of that coming up on this show in the next 50 minutes or so. Let's start with our Monday Morning GM. And again, it kind of comes in the vein of Monday Morning Quarterback, because when you Monday Morning Quarterback, it's really easy to sit there and say, well, they should have done this player should have done that. In fact, it was really easy for us to Monday Morning Quarterback Orion Kerkering's throw to home, right? Where we say routinely that ball needs to get thrown to first, but in the moment, it's easy to Monday Morning Quarterback the next day. With that being said, let's start this series of Monday Morning GMs with Ranger Suárez. Is this the end of the road as a Philly for Ranger Suárez? Has Ranger Suárez thrown his final pitch as a member of the Phillies? Now, we did this exercise a couple of months ago, and that was right when Ranger Suárez was having a little bit of a dip in the middle of the season. He came back in the beginning of May, set the world on fire, had a little bit of a dip, was struggling with command, velocity was down. You remember the start against the Reds, where he basically, I think if he would have pitched another inning, was going to get ejected. He was really frustrated, and things were kind of heading in the wrong direction. He resurfaced, he rebounded, and his September was excellent, and his bulk relief appearance in Game 3 of the NLCS was really, really good. And if that's the last that we see of Ranger Suárez, I will be thankful for the moments that Ranger has given us for a very long time. We flashed the numbers of his postseason career with the Phillies on Friday. Unbelievable stuff in the postseason, both as a starter and coming out of the bullpen. 2022, he came out of the bullpen a lot, was closing some games. He and Eflin were the tandem in the back end of the bullpen. He gets the final out of the NLCS. 2023, he starts 24 and 25, the one start against the Mets, and then the bulk innings against the Dodgers in 25. He's bounced back and forth between the starter role and the bullpen role, and everything that Ranger Suárez has done has led to this point where he's going to become a very highly sought-after free agent. He's going to become a guy that a lot of teams are going to be interested in. No, he doesn't throw hard. No, he doesn't strike a ton of guys out. He's about a strikeout per inning pitch guy, maybe a little bit less. He doesn't have the wipeout stuff, but he knows how to command the strike zone. He knows how to work backwards. He knows how to change speeds. He knows how to throw strikes. He knows how to keep hitters off of balance. And he's really particularly sharp when he's mixing in breaking balls, when he's spotting the sinker on the outer edge to righties, when he's throwing the curveball to the righty's back foot, when he's throwing the slider down and away to lefties. He has a multitude of ways to beat you, which lead to you having really uncomfortable at bats, which lead to you having, very low average exit velocity where you're beating the ball into the ground or popping up. And you look at the at bat and you go, man, he tossed me a 1-1 fastball at 91 up in the zone. And I stood there and I looked at it because it wasn't what I was expecting. I was looking for the off-speed stuff. I was looking for the breaking ball. And then he'll throw you something nastier and you swing over top of it and you ground it back to Ranger, who fields his position excellently. And it's a ground out, and all of a sudden you look up and you got 4 innings of one-hit ball and you've hit one ball hard because Ranger keeps you off balance. With all of that being said, I think Ranger's going to command a pretty high off-season payroll. I think it's going to be a multi-year deal for a pretty sizable amount of money. Excuse me, pardon me. But I think the first thing that we need to talk about is what the Phillies should do as soon as they are allowed to do it. The first thing the Phillies should do as soon as they're allowed to do it is offer Ranger Suárez the qualifying offer. So the qualifying offer is 1 year. It's going to be about $22 million this season. And what that is it's a preliminary offer that says the Phillies have offered you a contract. Now, that doesn't mean that Ranger Suárez has to take it. And in fact, I don't think Ranger Suárez would accept a qualifying offer. I think between the fact that he had a really good year and the fact that he is a left-handed pitcher, the fact that he has made quality starts year in and year out, he's going to have high demand. And I think not only is he going to get a multi-year deal, but I do think there is a scenario in which he gets more than $22 million a season. So the Phillies should offer him the qualifying deal, which basically says it's giving the Phillies some insurance in case that they don't re-sign him, in case he signs somewhere else. So here are the three outcomes that could happen with the qualifying offer. Number one, he accepts it. I think he'd be foolish to, but he could accept the qualifying offer, and he's back on a one-year deal worth $22 million. And then we're having this conversation next year with the exception of they can't offer him the QO the second time. The second option, which is probably the one that is most likely if the Phillies sign him, is that he declines, and then they could re-sign him to a long-term deal. Option number three is that he declines the qualifying offer, and then he signs elsewhere. So the reason you offer him the qualifying offer is because if he does sign elsewhere, there would be a compensatory pick that the Phillies would get back. Now, it's not like the end-all, be-all. This isn't like getting a compensatory pick in the NFL where you're expecting that player to be NFL ready or a competitive NFL player pretty close to right away. Obviously in Major League Baseball, the draft is such a crapshoot that it could be a good player. It could be a player that never goes beyond single A. We've seen first-round picks flame out. We have seen, 10th-round picks become Hall of Fame caliber players. But there are three categories that if a team loses a free agent to the qualifying offer, that they would fall into different buckets. You only have to worry about one, but here's the three categories. There are revenue-sharing teams, there are non-revenue-sharing teams that don't pay luxury tax, and then there are non-revenue-sharing teams that do pay luxury tax. The Phillies, of course, find themselves in option number three. Because they find themselves in a spot with the Dodgers, the Mets, the Braves, the Giants, the Astros, the Rangers, and the Yankees, the compensatory pick falls later in the draft. Because they're in that spot, the pick falls somewhere in a mid-range category. Last year, all of the compensatory picks for those the non-revenue sharing teams that went over the luxury tax was in the fourth round. They were picks like 120, 125, 130. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's some insurance for the Phillies should Ranger Suárez end up not accepting the qualifying offer and walking. So I think the first step in this whole conversation is the Phillies will slap a qualifying offer on Ranger Suárez. He'll probably be one of three players the Phillies QO this offseason, and the other two being Kyle Schwarber and perhaps JT Realmuto. I think they'll probably offer him one as well, just in case. But I think that it's one of three guys that the Phillies will qualifying offer. I don't think they'll offer one to Bader. I don't think they'll offer one to Kepler. Definitely won't offer one to Romano. But those three guys probably will get the qualifying offer. Now, here's the reasons as to why I think he won't accept the qualifying offer. First and foremost, he's going to get a big-time deal somewhere else if it's not here. It'll be multi-year, likely somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range with a pretty hefty price tag involved. And the reason is because he had a really good year. He had a career high in innings pitched despite making 3 less starts than his previous career high. He had a 3.20 ERA. It's the best for a season when he was a full-time starter. Now, he had some really good numbers in 2021, 1.39 ERA, but he also only made 12 starts in his 39 appearances. It's the same situation for his whip. It's the best he had as a starter at 1.22. His 151 strikeouts are a career high. He has a career high strikeout to walk ratio. He has a career best walks per 9. Career high hard hit percentage at 31.1%, which fell in the 98th percentile of all of baseball. And as we've talked about, pretty much all of the season, he was in the 95th percentile of average exit velocity. His walk rates were good. His barrel rates were good. It was a really good season for Ranger Suárez. One that I think gets maybe forgotten about because of the dip in the middle of the year and the fact that he might have been the Phillies, fourth best starter this season. But it was a really good year for Ranger Suárez. So it brings up the question, what does a Ranger Suárez extension look like? Now, this is where we're going to play high end, low end. And I come up with 2 players who have signed within the last 4 years. The one player signed in 2024 and the other player signed in 2022. So let's take a look at mystery player number 1. And this is what I think the low end of a Ranger Suárez contract would look like. It's a 4-year deal worth $80 million. Now let's play the comparison game. Those numbers for mystery player number 1 are of the final year before signing the free agent deal. ERAs are pretty similar. Rangers was slightly better. Innings pitched, very similar. Rangers was slightly better again, 3.2 to 3.3 ERA. A little less than 5 more innings pitched for Ranger. Pretty identical years. The whip falls in favor of the mystery player by about 1/10 of a point, 1.22 to 1.15. Strikeout rates were, again, eerily similar, 151 to 143. Mystery player signed for 4 years and $80 million. Now, I think this is the floor for a Ranger Suárez contract, is about $20 million a season. Now, if the Phillies were able to get Ranger Suárez back for 4 years and $80 million, I think they would do it pretty much in a heartbeat. Because A, it's under the qualifying offer for the 1 season, and B, $20 million for Ranger Suárez for 4 years, which would be his years 31, 32, 33, and 34 seasons, doesn't feel like an overpay by any means. In fact, I think that might be an underpay. I think this is the absolute floor that a Ranger Suárez contract would look like should he get that multi-year contract that we're expecting. Now, the question is, based on those numbers, the comparison here, do you think Ranger Suárez is more deserving of more than $20 million a season? Now, the numbers tell you it's pretty darn close. But when we reveal the player, that's when the question kind of gets into consideration. So this player signed a multi-year extension, the 4-year or multi-year contract with a different team. And since that moment has not been very good, has been hurt, has missed a lot of time. This year, 2025, posted a 5.02 ERA over 29 starts. The year prior, posted a 5.04 ERA in just 10 starts. He's only pitched 204 innings over the last 2 seasons. Now, before I tell you who it is, I want to welcome our second member of the program to get his thoughts on that player. It's our producer, our co-host, our buddy, Andrew Frazier. Andrew, before we get into who that player is, just based on the comp, based on the stats, It feels like those 2 players, Ranger and this player, had fairly similar years, right? Both lefties, both fairly similar numbers. But I feel like Ranger's going to get more than what this player got. How do you feel about does 4 for 80 feel like kind of a floor for you?
For Ranger?
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's a starting point for him, for sure. Also, not knowing who this mystery player is and knowing Ranger Suárez and looking at his stats in the postseason, he's lights out.
And that's the thing. The guy that we haven't brought up yet does not have a lot of playoff experience, let alone playoff. He's pitched in 11 playoff games. He started 4, but his ERA in the postseason 6.35. So let's show who player number 1 is here to kind of give you the idea of what the floor is going to be. This is the contract that was signed by Eduardo Rodriguez 2 years ago. 4 years for $80 million with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The numbers are eerily similar, but when I look at it now with the context that this is Eduardo Rodriguez and knowing what he has done over the last 2 years, that spoils it for me for a little bit. And it says to me, Rangers' last 2 years have been way better than Eddie Rodriguez has since he has signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks, which makes me think that 4 for 80 feels way more like a floor than it does a ceiling. Now, I will say this. Rodriguez was 30 when he signed in Arizona. Ranger is going to be 30. He's already 30. He'll be 30 this offseason, 31 sometime midway through 2026. But with that being said, I look at these 2 guys. Ranger, to me, feels like a safer bet in terms of when Ranger's at his peak. Ranger feels like a little bit of a safer bet than Eduardo Rodriguez, who had a really good year that final year in Detroit, but has not been able to duplicate it since joining Arizona.
Sorry. The only thing that I can say that might be the downfall of Ranger getting money elsewhere is the consistency that he has in his injuries.
And the middle of the season mounting. Sure.
And that can definitely be a big factor when playing into like how much he's going to make contract wise. But if you remove that, I think that's 480 what we saw with Rodriguez. I think that is I think that's a floor for Ranger.
All right, so then let's turn it to the other side. And I went and found another contract that was signed in 2022. 5 years, $110 million. Now, these numbers are substantially better. Not to say Ranger had a bad year, but it was a very, very good year for Ranger. But when you look at the guy on the right, and I think the silhouette might almost give it away because of the long hair, but the numbers on the right were an unbelievable season heading into free agency. Now, this player bet on himself. He took the qualifying offer the year prior after a good year and turned it into a great year and then signed the 5 for 110. Currently still on the roster. And in fact, I'll give you a little bit of a hint, still playing in the 2025 postseason. The year right before he signed the big-time free agent deal, 2.8 ERA, almost 200 innings pitched. That is the big differentiator there is Ranger, the 157 and a third that Ranger threw this year is a career high. 192 for this guy on the right seemed like just another year because he always throws a ton of innings. The whip is incredible, just over 1, and the strikeout number is the significant number, 227 strikeouts for this guy. And this is a guy who, over the course of his career, has struck out 200 or more 3 consecutive times. And in fact, in 2023, led the league in strikeouts with 237. He signed a 5 for 110 deal. This, to me, is about the ceiling for Ranger. Maybe a little bit more because of, like, obviously, as the years go, contracts get bigger and bigger and bigger. So, like, if this guy would have signed this same deal in 2025, he probably would have gotten, like, 5 for 130, right? It'd be a little bit more. But this guy, to me, is numerically, in terms of money, is the ceiling.
There's similar contracts almost, 4 for 80 and 5 for 110. You break it down, it's $2 million. Is the difference.
Sure.
Or 2,000.
Which feels like it's probably, maybe it's not enough of a
You're getting 20 a year versus 22 a year.
Right.
You know, so.
Now, let me say this again. I think that guy that signed that 5 for 10, if he were to sign now with the numbers he was getting, would get a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
Because coming off the years that he had, or the year that he had, he was excellent. And the subsequent years, he's also been very, very good. So the guy that I said was the ceiling, not in terms of what I think Ranger can be, but in terms of the money he's making, is Kevin Gausman from the Toronto Blue Jays. This guy has been a workhorse for each of the last 5 years. Took him a while to get going. Always an innings eater, but in Baltimore really struggled with ERA. And the reason that his ERAs were so high was because that he was giving up a ton of hits, like 208 hits in 186 innings pitched. But over the last couple of seasons, his hit numbers have come significantly down while his innings have stayed pretty much the same. He's thrown 181 or more innings in 5 of the last 6 seasons, 4 of the last 5 seasons, and his season low since signing with Toronto is 174 and 2/3, which is 17 more than Ranger's career best. I think Kevin Gausman is a much better pitcher than Ranger Suárez, and he's done it now even into his age 34 season, where his ERA is starting to climb a little bit. He's up into the 3.5s this year, but his strikeout numbers are still ridiculous. He's basically at basically posting 200 strikeouts a season, with the exception of 2024 every single year. He's at 189 this year, over 193 innings pitched. The strikeouts per 9 have come down a little bit, but his 8.8 strikeouts per 9 is basically Ranger Suárez career best. Which is 9.1, but that was, again, in the relief role. So that, I think, is the ceiling for Ranger, but I don't think he's going to get a Gausman-type contract. I think it probably falls somewhere in between.
Yeah,
now, with that being said, if it does, and it's somewhere in the 4 for 100-ish range, right, or 5 for 125, I don't know if the Phillies are going to match what another team is going to offer. I've said this for a while. I think that in 2026, Ranger Suárez is either a member of the Boston Red Sox or the Baltimore Orioles. I've been pretty consistent on that, right, Andrew? Those are the 2 teams I've gone with pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
I think if you were to say pinpoint 2 teams, I think it's one of those 2 teams. I could also see him being a member of the San Diego Padres, although I know the Padres are looking to maybe shed some payroll. But I do think that at the end of the day, Ranger is going to end up getting a contract more than what the Phillies are not only willing to offer, but perhaps able to offer because of the contractual stipulations of some of the other guys they may have to sign, plus the guys who are already under contract. I hate to say it. I love the guy dearly. He's been one of my absolute favorite pitchers to watch, not just in this run, but of my lifetime. You know, I'm a lefty myself. I love watching crafty lefties go to work. Jamie Moyer was a guy I always idolized, and Ranger took it to the next level because Ranger threw a little bit hard, probably a lot of it harder than Jamie, because everybody threw harder than Jamie Moyer. But watching Ranger Suárez pitch over the last couple of years and learn how to become a complete pitcher, learn how to be a guy who can give you over 300 innings in the last 2 seasons, learn how to pitch in a multitude of big spots, including postseason, has been nothing but the utmost joy. And I am going to miss Ranger Suárez dearly if he doesn't re-sign in Philly. But I think the most logical outcome for Ranger Suárez is he ends up signing elsewhere. How do you feel about the situation, Andrew?
What I was going to say, while you were talking, and what was it? Stephen Paul made a great comment, and it was kind of aligns with what I was going to say. I definitely believe that Ranger is worth $25 million a year. So however you want to extend that, whether that's a 4 or 5 year contract, I think that he is like 23 to 25 million a year player. In a perfect world, obviously the Phillies would match that. Whatever team is going to come up and say, hey, we'll give you that money. But I don't know what their direction is. I don't know. It all depends on, are you going to re-sign Kyle Schwarber?
Sure.
If you re-sign Kyle Schwarber, you can't have Ranger. Are you going to prioritize Ranger over Schwarber? And then what do you do at some of your position players? It's really hard to nail down any concrete, this is the approach that the Phillies are going to take.
Yeah. They have a lot of money that comes off the books this year.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just going to end up being a reallocation of funds to some of those similar guys.
Exactly.
And that's why we're doing this series, right? Ranger, Schwarber, JT, talked about Bader, right? Like there's a lot of guys internally that the Phillies probably would like to have back. It's a matter of what do their
feasibly
contracts
can they
look
do
like.
it? They just, like financially, are they
Sure.
able to pull those moves off?
The Phillies have spent a crap ton of money over the last couple of off seasons, which gets them to last offseason and this offseason, which gets them to the point where I'm not saying they're not penny pinching, but they do have a finite amount of a pool of money.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much that number actually is.
And they might have to try to get crafty. I mean, and we'll talk about it, in the next couple of weeks and months, while we have this offseason.
Sure.
But this team is going to have to get crafty. It's going to be like, hey, our guys who are currently in positions going to have to find a new position? Are you going to have to find a way to put Turner into the outfield? Or are you going to have to try to find a way to get Bryce into the outfield? Because those are contracts that are staying here for a while. Are we going to have to utilize them in different ways? Are we going to have to bring in a first baseman or a shortstop? Find a replacement for Casti in the outfield.
Well,
find a third baseman replacement.
A lot of this hinges on if they're able to actually move Castellanos' contract, right? And that's where we get into the hypothetical game of like, if you can get off $20 million, you have a big chunk of money that you just saved. Now, the reality is, I'm not sure they're getting all $20 million back.
No.
I think if you are moving Castellanos, the likelihood is you're probably eating some of a chunk of that salary.
Yeah, because you have to find a suitor that's going to want to take Castellanos. Is that a White Sox? Is that a Marlins? Is that a Colorado? Like, there are so many questions.
But they're not going to pay $20 million for him.
Yeah, and it's so hard to say. And I was one of them. A initial reaction when the game ends is blow the team up because you're just so sick and tired of seeing the same result year after year. But reality is that the Phillies can't. They cannot do that. Like, that's impossible for them to do. And Topper might still be here. Rob may not get fired.
Yeah.
Just because, if you're going to keep the same crew, the same crew together, I just don't know. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a really interesting offseason because I think it's an absolute pivot point for the Phillies. I think this is you talk about running it back last year, and I was pretty adamant about running it back for the most part last year, last offseason into this most recent year. Made sense from a financial standpoint because they really didn't have a whole lot of place to go. Now that you do have some of these guys' contracts coming off the books, the problem is Schwarber's deal was a steal looking back at it, right? $19.5, $20 million a year. He's going to get more than that, whether it's here or elsewhere. JT was making big money. Does he make similar money on a short-term years deal? Does he get more years and bring the AAV down? Those types of things come into question. Then Ranger is obviously the big one because he's going to go from making $9 million to probably making almost $20 million to $25 million, right? So that's where this all stems is like you are going to get some money by guys leaving, right?
Yeah.
But are they back and at what price?
Yeah.
So it'll be and that's why we're going to kind of play this series over the next few weeks.
Sure.
We are going to have to make a decision, not we personally. I mean, like the
Phillies.
We could play the hypothetical game. The Phillies are going to have to make a decision at some point of what is cost cutting and what is value for what they're saving. So we're way over break. I apologize, Andrew. On the other side, we're going to get into the ALCS. We'll talk more about it, more about this Monday morning quarterback scenario that we're going to do. Monday morning, I keep saying Monday morning quarterback because that's where it stemmed from. Monday morning general manager that we're going to do each and every Monday. Next week, we'll take a look at Kyle Schwarber's contract, and we'll do that next Monday as well. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We're brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Our postseason coverage, which rolls on even though the Phillies do not, is brought to you by our friends over at TrueMark Financial Credit Union, and we'll be right back after this. All right, let me tell you about TrueMark Financial Credit Union, because if your home's in need of a little bit of TLC, or you're thinking about taking a big vacation, or you just need to do some reno work on your house, now has never been a better time than now to do that with TrueMark Financial's HELOC Select, because rates have just dropped, making it even more affordable to put your home's equity to work. If you need a new kitchen, or you got to do big repairs, or if you're thinking about traveling, right? You don't have to hit the road with your team. You can maybe travel with your family. Go spend some time away from sports. I'm thinking about doing it in a couple weeks, quite frankly. You can do that with HELOC Select. You can take all of your money out at once or just when you need it. It's totally flexible. You can make it happen today by visiting one of TrueMark's 24 branches or head online 24/7 at truemark.com/PHLY to get in the game today. Federally insured by the NCUA, Equal Opportunity Lender, NMLS 404938. And let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365. Find out why 90 million users worldwide have teamed up with Bet365. They're the pioneers of live in-game betting, and you can watch 780,000 different events across all of the sporting networks, 78 of them to be exact. And how about this? New users right now, sign up, use that promo code on the bottom of your screen, PHLY365. Deposit 10, place a bet for 5, and you'll get $200 back in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. You find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's turn our attention to the teams that are still playing. And
do we have to?
Yeah, because we have an hour's worth of content to fill. Only reason. Now, let me ask you, Andrew, did you pull the same bozo move that I did, or did you actually take this weekend off?
No, I took this weekend off.
Good for you,
man.
because I got suckered right back.
Aside from football, because,
Sure.
Fantasy and all that stuff, I did not watch a lick of sports all weekend long.
Good for you, man, because I got suckered right back into this thing. And I did it on Friday night. I said I was watching the ALDS, and then I know you did pregame for the Flyers. I did postgame, and I'm sure we were, I was locked into that because, I'm working. It's part of the job. I get it. And then Sunday rolled around, and it was like, well, I guess the NFL's on. I'll watch some football. And then Sunday night came, and I watched the ALCS, which was a really good game. But I want to talk about what's that?
I said, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, it was. And I want to talk about that ALCS for a second, because I saw a tweet this morning from our buddy John Stolness from Hittin' Season and WHYY, and does a lot of really good work. And John and I don't always agree on everything, but I anytime I see John and I disagree with him, it comes from a place of just difference of opinion, right? I think John does an excellent job of being very statistically driven. He and I are very much similar in the way that we go about our jobs. I think John does an awesome job. But I disagree. Let me rephrase that. His tweet was not disagreeable. It was a factual tweet. But I disagree with, I think, the place that he was coming from with the tweet. And he said, basically, the Phillies in their last 9 postseason games, dating back to 2023, are 0-9 when they score 3 runs or less in those 9 games, which is a fact, right? It's not disputable. We're not arguing it. John's correct. It's a factual statement. But I think where he was coming from was, comparing it to the Mariners, who won last night with 3 runs. And in fact, the Mariners just this postseason have won 3 games already when they have scored 3 runs or less. I think the big difference, and this is where maybe the disconnect between John and I has come up, even though his tweet was factually correct, was the big difference between the Mariners winning 3 games and the Phillies winning 3 games, or not winning those 3 games. Now, I will say I'm a big proponent of I don't care where your runs come from, but there is a mental conversation to be had that the Mariners' top 4 this postseason, even though they've not scored a ton of runs, the Mariners' top 4 has hit, and the Phillies' top 4 didn't. In fact, the last 2 postseasons, the Phillies' top 4 has not hit. So let's go back to Game 4 of the NLDS. They were 2 for 17 with 2 walks. Game 2, after the night before, sandwiching in between the 8 runs, and I understand that. But Game 2 of the NLDS, they were 2 for 14 with 3 walks. Game 1, they were 1 for 13 with 3 walks. So they walked 7 times, a majority of which came from Alec Boehm, and they were 5 for 44 in the non-Game 3 series against the Dodgers. Now, again, tip of the cap to the Dodgers starters, Snell, to Ohtani, to Glasnow, to the bullpen guys like Glasnow pitching out of the pen, Sasaki, Vesia, Banda. Tip of the cap to those guys for pitching well. They were excellent. They held a good Phillies lineup in check, especially the top 4. But you think about Harper, Turner, Schwarber, Boehm, in those 3 games combined, hit 114 with 7 walks. So they were on base 12 times in 51 plate appearances. You just simply cannot win a Major League Baseball game, let alone a Major League postseason game, when that top 4 doesn't hit. Now, again, runs come from wherever they come from, but when you're not scoring and you're not producing from your top 4, I do think there's a trickle-down effect where it starts to put a pressing feel on the guys that maybe aren't as expected to hit, your 5 through 9 guys who didn't hit in Game 4 over 11 innings, but did a decent job over the first 2 of trying their best to pick up the slack. You can go back to 2024 against the Mets. Outside of the Game 2 walk-off win, the top 4, which wasn't Boehm, it was Castellanos, but it was still Schwarber, Turner, Harper, were 4 for 15 in Game 1, were 3 for 13 in Game 2, or in Game 3, and were 3 for 15 in Game 4. Their 10 for 43 mark was a 232 average. Now, compared to last year or to last week, my God, I never would have thought that a 232 top 4 would have been something to write home about. But compared to last week where they hit 114, they were at least a little bit better. They didn't hit in timely situations, but they were a little bit better. They were 10 for 43, and in total, 16 for 49 getting on base. Again, that's just over a 333 OBP from your top 4, and it's basically under 200. It's 11 for 51, just about 200, if not under, an OBP in this last week's series. The difference for the Mariners' 3 wins, when they score 3 runs or less, their top 4 in 2 of those 3 games, they hit well. Game 2 of the ALDS, they were 6 for 16. They hit 2 home runs. They had 3 RBI, and they scored all 3 runs. Game 1 of the ALCS last night, they were 5 for 14. They drew 3 walks. They had 3 RBI, and they scored all 3 runs. Now, Game 5 against the Tigers, they were 2 for 21, but Jorge Polanco did have the game winner to push them into the ALCS. All told, their top 4, which is Randy Arozarena, Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, and Jorge Polanco, were 13 for 51. It's not an insane number. It's 255. But in those 2 games specifically, Game 1 of the ALCS and Game 1 of the ALDS, they were 11 for 30. That's enough to get the job done. I think that takes some pressure off the bottom of your lineup. It takes the pressure. And then, by the way, that doesn't include their 5-hitter, Eugenio Suarez, who hasn't done much. That doesn't include J.P. Crawford. That allows them to have a little bit of a trickle-down effect from the top of their lineup, even if they aren't scoring a ton of runs, to know, hey, we're not hitting, but Jorge's got us. Hey, we're not hitting, but Julio's got us. Hey, we're not hitting, but Cal's got us. Cal hits the home run last night. Jorge Polanco drives in a late run to extend the lead to 3-1. it gives you some feel for your pitchers feel a little bit better. The bottom of your lineup takes a little bit of pressure off. I'm not saying they've been elite by any stretch, but they've been markedly better than what the Phillies top four did. And that, I think, is the difference between the Mariners winning these games scoring 3 runs and the Phillies losing these games scoring 3 runs or less. And doesn't help that 2 of those games, 2 of the 5, I should say, of the last 5, they scored 1 run. The Phillies did. So I think that, to me, is where the difference and the disconnect between John's tweet and what I was thinking is the Mariners and the Phillies are built similarly. Elite level pitching, a good top 4, try to round it out with the bottom with the next 5 guys. Right? It's your MVP candidate near the top. It's Julio Rodriguez, who probably should be an MVP candidate with his talent. And, now I don't know how much they were expecting from Jorge Polanco coming into the season. He's been really, really good. But it's built in similar ways. Elite starting pitching, a top 4 that you need to hit, and getting anything from the bottom 5 is a plus. The Mariners got it, even when they're only scoring 3 runs. The Phillies didn't. Now, if you ask me who's the better team, the Dodgers or the Tigers, the answer is clearly the Dodgers. If you ask me who's a better team, the Dodgers or the Blue Jays, I think the answer is still the Dodgers. So I'm not taking that away from this conversation, but I do think when it matters most, the Mariners have gotten timely hitting from their top 4, even if numerically they're only slightly better, whereas the Phillies this postseason did not, other than in Game 3 when they exploded off of Clayton Kershaw. All right, let's pause. On the other side, we'll start to talk about the ALCS. We'll kind of continue this postseason dialect, and we'll continue to dive into the numbers. We'll get into the Dodgers and the Brewers. I'm going to get Andrew's thoughts on it. I'm going to get your thoughts. We're going to preview it. We'll give you who we think wins the series, and we'll talk about our early World Series predictions. Well, early for the ALCS at least, and we'll kind of compare it to where we were just a couple of weeks ago. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We are broadcasting live from the Xfinity Lounge, and we will be right back after this. All right, listen, I know your team's out, but that doesn't mean you can't go watch other teams go play ball. And if you're looking for the best secondary baseball tickets, MLB tickets, you have to team up with Game Time. They give the advantage back to you. It is the hack for unlocking unbelievable tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It means you can trust that you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included with just one little slide of a toggle. You're going to know exactly what you're going to pay up front. Don't worry about that last second fee where you go to put your credit card information and you go, wait, where'd this number come from? You know exactly what you're going to pay before you buy the ticket. And with Game Time, you can use the 3D seat map to see exactly where those seats are going to be. So maybe you're thinking about heading to the World Series in just a couple of weeks and wondering, do I know what the stadium in LA looks like? Do I know what Seattle looks like? Do I know what Milwaukee looks like? If you're thinking about going to watch some just objectively good baseball, you don't want to sit in a bad seat. You do the 3D seat map with Game Time. You're going to know exactly what your sight lines are before you purchase it. And with Game Time's lowest price guarantee, if you find a better deal, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code PHLY for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Mando. Listen, it's fall, crisp air, football, bonfires, starting to get a little bit cooler, but that doesn't mean you're done working. And if you're like the typical guy, you're still putting in that grind. And when you put in the grind, you know that you're going to sweat, which means you might smell a little bit more. But with Mando, you don't have to worry about it. 72-hour odor and sweat control. And after just 12 hours, those who use Mando underarm sweat was reduced by 92%. Regular deodorant, listen, it just doesn't cut it. And after a long day, not only do you want to smell great, but you want to feel great too. And that's where Mando comes in. It doesn't just mask odor, it prevents it. And 100% of their study participants experienced all-day odor protection. It's double protection, both odor and sweat. And for you, if you're thinking about trying it, you don't want to go too far just yet, Mando's starter pack is the perfect play for you. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like maybe a mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and of course, it comes with free shipping. And as a special offer to listeners, new customers right now get 20% off site-wide with the exclusive code PHLY at shopmando.com. So you get 20% off plus free shipping on the Mando starter pack with the promo code PHLY. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Tyler Zulli, Andrew Frazier, and of course you hanging out in the chat. Thanks so much to our friends, Ray Schumacher, Molly and Barkley's Life, Futz, who else was here earlier? Stephen Paul. Wilford Brimley's in the chat, Andrew. Is he trying to get us to worry about our diabetes? I think he is. Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. Did you know that over 37 million Americans have diabetes?
Yeah, people don't know about my diabetes.
Hello to everybody in the chat. Provolone John was here earlier. Provolone John brought up a point that we can circle back to. Don't know if that you can afford Ranger. Well, again, it kind of comes down to like that allocation of funds. I don't think you can afford everybody that you're looking to re-sign. And so I think you might get 2 of them back. And I got to be honest with you. We'll talk more about the other contracts on the other side. Andrew, it feels to me, I don't know how you feel about it, but it feels to me like of the 3 big ones, Ranger, Schwarber, JT, there may need to be some extra emphasis, not because I think he's the best player, but because of the need that they have at his position. There may be some extra emphasis on JT's return first and foremost.
Sure.
Because of the scarcity of the catcher position.
Sure.
Because of the fact that let's call it for what it is. I don't know if there's that many good catchers in baseball.
No.
Like that can do both. Like JT has always been an elite defensive catcher. Pop Time's always been there. He's a fairly good blocker. Again, I've always questioned his pitch calling, but has been better as of late. And the offense is there. He struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year, but he turned it around late, was driving the ball to right center field a lot. The pop came back a little bit. I'm not expecting JT to be the JT that signed with or that initially was traded to the Phillies. I'm not even expecting JT to be the guy that re-signed with the Phillies. But if he can be a productive member of your lineup, hit somewhere in that 5, 6, 7 range, I do think they're going to prioritize bringing Real Muto back because of the scarcity of the position, of the catcher position. And I don't know if that's at the behest of Schwarber or Ranger, but I do think it may be at the behest of one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking back at this postseason, JT was really the only one who was consistent the entire time. So, and like the catcher situation, there's not a real clear backup for him. I know we have Marchand, but like that's, how sustainable is that? Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go pecking order, like who is the most precious of the 3 and then kind of working your way down, and I would say you re-sign JT.
I think there's an argument to be made. Like Schwarber's the better hitter, obviously, no question about it.
Yeah.
But I think there's an argument to be made that JT might be a priority because of the position that he plays.
Yeah, it's so hard to look at I just said like earlier. It's so hard to look at this team right now and be like, okay, what direction do they go? Because in my mind, this is what they would do. They would re-sign JT. You would probably prioritize Ranger over Schwarber in re-signing.
I don't know if I agree with that order because I think they feel confident in the rest of their staff, like especially if Wheeler can be back.
Well, you would have to deal.
Manner.
You try to deal Aaron Nola, right? You would try to if you re-sign Ranger, you have to try to deal Aaron Nola.
You could certainly
to get out of that
contract.
Yeah,
I mean that's 27. What's it? $27 million a season. But again, it goes back to that like 2 to tango thing. When we think about trades, it's something that we're going to talk about a lot this offseason because I do think there's going to be a conversation about can they move an Aaron Nola or a Nick Castellanos type of contract. When you think about those trades, my immediate thought doesn't go to the Phillies moving the player. It goes to the team that is trying to acquire that player. Because I think it comes down to A, do they have the budget to do it? B, do they have the want and the need to do it? And C, do they have the players that you think are going to be a valuable return? It's the reason as to why the Phillies didn't move Alec Boehm last year. Because Boehm wasn't expensive. Boehm had arbitration, 2 years of arbitration, and was coming off an all-star level season. Now, the postseason and the tantrums and the throwing the helmet probably didn't help his case, didn't help the Phillies' case in moving him. But my guess was the Phillies actively shopped him, and I think the reports were they were actively shopping him, they didn't get the return that they wanted. Was the return that they were being offered not enough, or was their asking price too high? Like, that's the balance that you have to play. So if the asking price was too high, then they were trying to leverage 2 years of arbitration, all-star season, pretty much an everyday third baseman, as close as it as you can get. Defense has improved enough. Bat is consistent when healthy. Not a pop guy, but a gaps hitter, drives in runs. If you can provide him somebody who, like, he should not hit fourth in a real lineup, in a lineup that's constructed. I shouldn't say a real lineup because the Phillies have $300 million payroll. They should be a real lineup, but he should not hit fourth for a lineup that can be constructed with a legitimate 4-hole hitter. To me, Bohm is best suited for the 5-6 hole.
Yeah.
And if he's that guy, the RBI numbers probably will spike back up a little bit because he's got some really good hitters ahead of him and the pressure's off. But so my question, like with Bohm specifically, is if they didn't get the return that they wanted this year or this offseason, the return's going to be less heading into this offseason.
Sure.
Because he had a lesser year.
Sure.
He was hurt, and he now only has 1 year of arbitration compared to 2.
Sure.
So he becomes a free agent in 2027's offseason.
Yeah.
So if the return wasn't good enough for you last year, either you need to set your sights lower, or the return's definitely not going to be good enough for you this year.
I mean, I'm sure there are ways. I'm not a professional at this stuff, but like, I'm sure there are ways that if they really wanted to get out of these contracts, they can find ways to do it. And I'm sure there are teams out there who would like take these. Like, I'm sure there's a team out there who would take Aaron Nola. Like, I would be shocked if everybody was just like, oh, this dude stinks, we don't want him. Like, he's still a good player. He just had one bad season. He showed himself in that game against the Dodgers, even though it was one rotation through the lineup. He still showed that he had stuff in that postseason. I cannot imagine that there's not a team out there that would be like, oh yeah, we don't want to take Aaron Nola, because in my mind, like they take JT, they take Ranger, you let Schwarber walk. You find a way to put Turner or Harper into the outfield. You look at Kyle Tucker. You look at Pete Alonso. And you try to find somebody. Maybe you do or you don't.
You're big time swinging.
You have to. I
don't know if they have the budget for it.
I mean, you might have to find ways to do it. But yeah, I mean, you get like a Pete Alonso, Kyle Tucker. Maybe you keep Bohm. Maybe Bohm has to stay in there. But like, I just don't know any other way to make this team better.
Breaking news. News.
Topper fired?
Multiple reports. Joel Sherman, John Heyman. Rob Thompson will be returning as manager in 2026.
I'm not shocked. I just said that like 10 minutes ago. I don't know if they realistically actually get rid of him.
I'm surprised. And I think we'll probably end up having to do some sort of an emergency pod on this. I'm surprised.
Dude, they're going to go all out.
I'll tell you why I'm surprised on the other side, because we have a break to hit and I want to do it in regulation. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. I am surprised that Topper is back, not because I think he's not a good manager, but I'll tell you why on the other side. It's the PHLY Phillies Podcast. We'll be right back after this. All right, my hometown casino is the place to go if you're looking for another way to always win. If you're looking for another way to win, let me rephrase that. Always another way to win because your hometown team didn't win. You can hang out with our friends over at Parks Casino. They have incredible new casino games like Huff and More Puff and Fireblaze Sky Queen, a Bet Parks exclusive. It's part of the reason why it's the only app that I would ever use to play all of my favorite casino games. You can play blackjack, roulette, craps, poker, baccarat, and all the hot online slots, including hot online slots based on your favorite streaming shows like The Walking Dead, Peaky Blinders, Squid Games, and so much more. And how about this? New users right now get up to $1,000 bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. Head on over to betparks.com, download the app right now, and enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. Must be 21 and in PA, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParks. You play to win, or you love to play, you play to win, you bet. BetParks. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, while we're here, let me tell you about Xfinity. If you're thinking about watching the last 4 teams in playoff baseball, you have to get Xfinity. No lagging, no buffering, no switching between apps. If you call yourself a big fan, you have to get Xfinity. It's the ultimate sports destination where you can find all of the best games and your favorite teams all in one place. And the way that you watch, it becomes next level. It's the perfect fan flex, and it's all of the action right there in your living room. Plus, with Xfinity's best picture and sound enhanced in 4K, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to worry about battling traffic and getting $100 worth of concessions. You can do it right from your couch with Xfinity. And on top of that, you get all real-time notifications and live stats right on your TV. So next game day, make sure that big fan in your life isn't a big fail. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies Podcast. Yeah, we are going to have to go a little bit long today because it seems like reports that Rob Thomson is going to be back as the manager for the Phillies in 2025. Rob Thomson, as the Phillies manager, I think has been more good than he's been bad. I think for the most part, his win percentage is high. He won 95 games last year. He won 96 games this year. The year before, the Phillies ended up winning 90 games. And the year prior to that, he was 65-46 after taking over for Joe Girardi, who got fired about 50 games into the year. They've been to the postseason all 4 times. They have regressed in the postseason. But I do believe that Rob Thomson has been more good than he has been bad. The reason I'm surprised that Rob Thomson is back as manager, now, I don't think he was very good this series. I think that he had a chance to do a couple of different things. If he could go back and do them again, I think he may change his direction. There was the decision to pull Christopher Sanchez and go to Dave Roberts, which worked, but then you go, or David Robertson, excuse me. Then you go back to him, it backfires, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. There was the decision to do you or do you not pull Christopher Sanchez in Game 5, right? Do you go to Joan Duran? Do you save him? I was in the camp of going to Duran to get the big out, but I know a lot of people didn't love it. Do you bunt Stott in that situation? Do you not pinch run for Castellanos in that same spot? There were things that Rob Thomson, I think, would like to have back. And I think we as fans would like Rob Thomson to have back. But I don't necessarily think it was Rob Thomson's managing was the reason as to why I'm surprised that he's back. I'm surprised that he's back because when you have a situation that has happened over the last couple of seasons, and you lose the way that you've lost over the last couple of seasons, specifically in the exact same format, elite level starting pitching and the top of your lineup not producing. We've just talked about it. They were not good this year, and they were not good last year. And whether it was Turner and Harper and Schwarber at the top of the lineup, or it was Schwarber and Harper and Turner and Castellanos at the top of the lineup, those guys did not do enough over the last 2 seasons to help you win games. That's not Rob Thomson's fault. But when you have players and you have managers, the old adage comes into play, you really can't fire players. So what do? You turn to a different voice. You turn to a different person in the locker room to perhaps just kickstart a fire. You saw it with Joe Girardi. The team was anemic. They were lifeless, and they really didn't have a whole lot of feel other than apathy. Girardi gets fired. Thomson comes in. The players start playing a little bit more loose and free and playing to how they like to play. Rob Thomson, who has been an excellent players manager over the course of his career, did that in Philadelphia and allowed the guys to be who they were, and they shined, right? They went to the World Series. They went back to the NLCS. They've won the division each of the last 2 years. And you can say regular season success does not equate to postseason success, which is true. The Phillies lineup has failed Rob Thomson more than Rob Thomson has failed the Phillies lineup. But when you have a team that is constructed the way that the Phillies are, more times than not, it becomes very difficult to get off of the players. So instead, you turn to the manager. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, managers lose their job because of these exact types of situations. So while I do think Rob Thomson has been really, really good for the Phillies and more good than bad over the last 4 seasons, I am a little bit surprised that he's keeping his job today and keeping his job for next year, because you almost just feel like there needed to be a new regime and a fit change for the coaching staff. I like Rob Thomson a lot. I don't wish the guy any ill will, but I am stunned that he is coming back for 2026. Andrew, you said you're not as surprised. Oh, yeah, before we get out of here, thank you to everybody who's watching on our streaming platforms, Roku, Samsung, Xfinity. Head on over to allphly.com to watch the rest of the show. We are officially in overtime. All right, so Andrew, you said you're not as surprised.
I'm not. I'm not as surprised.
What's the reason you're not as surprised?
Because you can't blow this team up. You just can't. With the way it's formatted, the way the contracts are here, there are no trade clauses, different things like that. You cannot blow this team up. And I think if you were going to blow this team up, the first thing that you would have done is fired Rob Thompson. That would have been like, okay, the blow up is here. But the fact of the matter is, they're not ready to move on from Rob because they feel like Rob can still help them win games. They probably saw him through this regular season, saw how he was able to figure out the outfield in different situations, to getting through the adversity of the injuries. He found ways to make them still a 90-plus win team.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that is because of his impact or in spite of his impact, it doesn't matter. He was still here to do that. Obviously, very questionable calls in the postseason. He has a history of questionable calls in the postseason. We all know that. We all saw it. We all witnessed it, especially this season. This just tells me that they're going to do exactly what I was saying. I think they're going to go all in.
I think they're pushing the chips
I think they're going to push the chips big time. I think they're going to look for big-time players through free agency. And they're going to be like, this is our last hurrah. If we cannot get it done this year, then I think there might be changes upcoming. But, yeah, man, I don't be surprised if a Pete Alonso or a Kyle Tucker or, one of those names are brought up in this Phillies team.
So if that's the case, then they need to just say bleep the luxury tax. And I think forget the draft pick, forget whatever we're willing to, whatever number we need to get to. Maybe they'll start using the Dodgers defer money strategy. Maybe they'll just say, screw it. We're just going to go all in. That probably tells me, Ruben Amaro was on WIP this weekend and was like alluding to kind of skirting around who it might be that they're looking to potentially trade a big-time contract. That big-time contract probably can't be Turner. It can't be Bryce Harper.
No trade clause. They both
obviously
have no trade clauses.
Harper's got the no trade clause. Aaron Nola has a 10-5. That would be your best bet, but he also has a 10-5, which would limit how you can move him. It won't be Zach Wheeler. So the options are Aaron Nola or Nick Castellanos. Those are your two other big-time contracts. And $20 million in today's game is not that much money for 1 year. So that leads me to believe if it is a big-time contract, would that person be Aaron Nola? And how do you move Aaron Nola? A, with understanding that he had the worst season of his career, and B, he does have 10-5.
I think because they're going to rely on his, not this season that just happened, but on previous seasons. And then they can also use, like if Aaron Nola came out in that Dodgers game and just like threw meatball after meatball and there was like 3 runs on the board by the time he got out of that inning or those 2 innings, it would look really bad for him, and moving forward it would be really hard to move him. But the fact that he came out and performed as well as he did in that game, although it was only one time through the order,
he was really good.
He still showed promise. And I think if you're a team that's, I'm not saying competing, but like on the cusp, and Aaron Nola to me is a good, could be a number 1 or a number 2 on a team, that could use him. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This is going to be really interesting to watch what direction this Phillies team goes, because I think Cassie's gone. I think Bohm is gone. I think Aaron Nola has a possibility of being gone. It comes up to like, what are our free agents going to look like? Are we re-signing Schwarber, Ranger, JT? What is that going to look like? It's going to be interesting. And now that Rob's here, it all really falls down on Dombrowski and Middleton and being, hey, are you guys willing to shell out the money to bring in big time guys? And is Dombrowski going to hit on those big time guys, or are we going to have a situation where it's like, here's Max Kepler and that's all we do? Last
year the Kepler Romano stuff, like it didn't work, but those types of signings I think we kind of all expected, right? Because they did say like, hey, we're close to the luxury tax, we're trying to stay under that threshold, blah blah blah. So last year they kind of went dumpster diving a little bit, right? You bring in Kepler, Romano, and Joe Ross for $25 million. Didn't get a whole lot of productivity until September from Kepler, right? And the other two guys stunk. If they're going to do that, maybe the idea is take that $24 million, place it on one really good player, and see what we can do. Now, you're going to have to add to those funds. And if you're going to do that, you're getting to $400 million. Like if you're going to go, you're going.
You're going. They're going. They have to go. They have to go.
It'd be interesting.
Because how do you walk away from this? And look, I know it stinks, the fact of the matter. I know it stinks that they lost to the Dodgers. But, like, in all honesty, this past series against the Dodgers really was a coin flip. Either team could have won. It's just unfortunate that, like, the favors did not go in the way of the Phillies, because the Phillies really just found some unlucky situations in that series. They easily could have been the team that went on to the NLCS. Like, the Dodgers did not blow me away. Like, their pitching was great.
Pitching did.
But, like, their pitching did. But, like, so did the Phillies pitching. Also blew us away. But on both sides, behind the plate, like, batting, neither team was, like, wowing, you know? Like, so they are a team that is right there, and I think they feel that way. They just need some consistent batters. They need a complement to that pitching. And I think if they can bring in one or two guys, might be big contracts, that can help you do that, I still think they have a good shot of winning.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. I imagine we're probably going to have to do some sort of an emergency pod at some point in the next hour or so. If we do that, we will let you all know. But until that time, thank you so much for being here. Andrew, thank you so much for producing and co-hosting today's show. To everybody in the chat, Ray, Molly and Barkley's Life, Futz, Provolone John, Elephant in the Room, Paul Barfield, who just became an MVP. Appreciate you, Paul. Everybody who's here, if I didn't mention you, thanks so much for being a part of it. Stephen Paul was here earlier. Wilford Brimley, our buddy, was here earlier. If you were here throughout the chat, Kevin Wise, thank you so much. I appreciate you everybody for being here. Thank you for tuning into today's show. Right now, next show is going to be Wednesday at 12 o'clock. We'll be back with you for some more conversation about the Phillies offseason. We'll keep you updated on if we do anything in terms of a Rob Thompson conversation in the next couple of hours or so. But until that time, we'll be back at noon on Wednesday. Coming up next, Philadelphia at 1:30, 2 o'clock, the Eagles, 3 o'clock, Sixers. And then tonight, a Flyers pre- and post-game show for the PHLY Phillies podcast. So we'll talk to you on Wednesday at noon right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.